You can see the finish line.
I didn't think we'll actually get here, Kane and G, to be honest. It's been a 30-week campaign and we are here for the final episode of the year. It's been a long year, but we've made it.
Well, I don't want you to drop off. You've been solid. You've had a good finals campaign, but a bit like Brisbane, you've had to travel 3 times. I don't want it to wear you down. So let's get stuck in your observations about the Brownlow.
Yeah, so I heard yourself, G, and Kane talking on the way in, and I'll put my hand up. I'm a bit the same as you, Kane. I didn't really tune in at all last night. Maybe I watched the first 6 or 7 rounds and then went to bed. And I thought I've got to get up early here. I'll find out who wins in the morning. It doesn't really bother me too much. And then I must admit, when I woke up this morning and saw that Paddy Cripps had 45 votes and Nick Dacos 38, that takes you a little bit by surprise. And then driving into work this morning, I didn't realise the hysterics around those particular votes being given, and the 45 and the 38, and it's ridiculous, and the award's ridiculous, and now it's losing credibility. But I'm driving in thinking, it's just like the game has changed, and it has changed significantly over the last 7, 8, 9 years, where teams only need or only have 4 to 5 superstars that are going to win you a prelim, that are going to win you a grand final, that you're setting the game up for. Whereas 10, 15, 20 years ago, the even spread of talent across the ground, I think we can all agree, and I've said this on the show throughout the year, that the depth or lack of depth across the competition, is pretty noticeable at the moment. When you go through, the emergency list of teams on a week-to-week basis, and you're looking, you go, geez, I remember 15 years ago, 20 years ago, you're looking and going, how's that guy not getting a game? How's that guy not getting? But you're very rarely seeing that. So you go back to 9 years ago, and I reckon Geelong were starting it in a way. When Dangerfield arrived, they get to a prelim, and it was basically only off Dangerfield, Selwood, Hawkins, and Harry Taylor, and they get to a prelim, almost get to a grand final, and then the year after was really the pin-up and the most noticeable one with Richmond, where it's Martin, Cochin, Rance, and Rewalt, and then the glut of role players just to do your thing. But we're setting the game up for you, Dusty. Melbourne are setting the game up for Petrarca. Carlton are setting the game up for Cripps. The Dogs are setting the game up for Bont. If you look at what Sydney are doing, they're setting the game up for 5 blokes. They're setting the game up for Goulden, Warner, Heaney, Blakey, and Papley, and that's it. And then the role players. Geelong doing the exact same thing. So you're not really going to be looking at seeing an even distribution of votes anymore when Michael Voss is sitting there going, well, for us to win a game of footy, we need Cripper to go bananas. We need Nick Dacos to go bananas. Right? So I'm not really surprised with what's happening. Yeah, maybe the 45 is maybe a fraction too much, but I don't think moving forward we're actually going to see a winner potentially get under 30 votes for a very, very, very long time. And then people keep telling me, and it's all what you actually value, and everyone's different, and you value something different, Kane, and yourself, G, and myself, and it's like, whatever, this is the umpire's vote, this is what the medal is. But on Saturday, Sydney v Brisbane, it will come down to who performs better out of Heaney, Warner, Goulden, or Neil, McCluggage, Dunkley, Rayner. Yeah? I'm not going to come down to Harris Andrews and Tom McCartan. Yeah, they're important. But the blokes in the middle are the ones that are going to win you a game of footy. And we talk, and it's so simple and it's so boring sometimes, but that's what it comes down to. So I look at every other award, I look at our stuff, the midfielders are on top, and a couple of halfback flankers are there. I look at the coaches award, the midfielders are there. I look at the Brownlow and the midfield. Well, they're there for a reason. If you don't have them, you are not competing at this stage of the season. You're not going to have success across the season, and they are the superstars.
But what about a Joe Danaher match winner? Like can't vote in the Brownlow medal essentially. What about a Tom Papley? Can't vote in a Brownlow medal. Like, and I look at Bobby Hill's another example of that. Wins a Norm Smith medal on ground. Zach Bailey can't vote in the Brownlow medal. Could be really influential. I'm not sure how many votes Cam Rayner got, but it wouldn't have been many.
Bobby Hill kicked 5 goals like he did on the grand final last year. You get 3 votes.
And then I watch Port Adelaide and I go, well, your bottom 10 players are just truly awful. So you can't win with that. You can't win with that. And I look at Sydney's bottom 10 and I go, well, Cunningham, Florent, James Jordan, these types of players,
they're not going to get votes.
Are much better. No, but they're really important in winning games of football.
Spot on, 100%. Yeah.
So I don't just think it's the midfield that are going to win you games of football. I think it is going to be McCartan. I think it is going to be Papley. I think it is going to be Zach Bailey. So I disagree a little bit in terms of the result of the game and who decides the result of the game.
But are you sitting back watching a game on Saturday, or whatever game it is, and looking at those role players who are absolutely important?
I look at Archie's 2 finals and go, my goodness, if that guy doesn't play, Brisbane are out in straight sets. That's what I think.
Yeah, okay.
I think he's been 11 score involvements first final.
He's been super.
I think he's been amazing.
Super. I missed the name. Who was that?
Archie.
Yeah.
So he would be, at the start of the year, you probably would have had him 18th, 19th on Brisbane's list of most important, maybe less than that with the injuries that they've had, but he's been able to step up. So I disagree that those types of players can't influence the result on Saturday. Yes, I agree with you on the Brownlow, but I don't think it's going to be just the names you mentioned that are going to determine the result.
But if I say on Saturday, just in reals, because I'm agreeing with you, but if I say on Saturday between Warner, Goulden and Heaney compared to Neil, McCluggage and Rayner, if Brisbane's 3 have a better performance or if Sydney's 3 have a better performance, to me that's going to determine the result.
Yep.
The role players are going to be, so important as well. But those 3 are your best 3. Whoever has the greater influence out of those 3 are going to determine the result.
So why do we then...
Would you agree? Or?
Why do we ask you this, Kane? Why do we then not apply hard tags more often on the 3? I mean, I assume that Dunkley will go to Heaney.
Berry will go to...
Rowbottom will go to Neil. Berry will go to Goulden.
There is something in the mindset of preparing your team negatively. There is something in the mind to go, if Chris Fagan says, you know what, fellas, are going to come into a pre-game meeting on Wednesday, we're going hard tag on Goulden, Warner and Heaney. And
Lizard. Archie will get Lizard.
And I think that their team's going, well, hang on, we're a pretty talented group. Like, they should be worrying about us as well. And I remember sitting in rooms where you've gone in with really negative tactics, and I'm the first one to say players like Lachie Neale shouldn't be standing at stoppage alone and getting 12 clearances like Geelong allowed him to do. Really surprised by that. So I go, well, Rowbottom goes and stands next to Neale. I'm all for that. But I think if you set up the game so negatively where you're going to go 4 tags on Sydney, if I'm a player in that room, I'm going, geez, we're going negative.
I think it's how you sell the tag.
Yeah.
I'm selling the tag of Archie on the Lizard. You can win this game for us. You take him out and kick some goals like you've been doing. Just keep doing what you're doing, whether it's negative or attacking. It's just get the balance right.
I don't think it's the exact same with Brisbane this week. It's just keep doing what you're doing. Like, we're not going to, I'm 100% agreeing with you. Like, we're not going to go over the top. But you know what? Josh Dunkley, you did this on DeGoey last year. You did this on Dangerfield on the weekend. Just do it again on Heaney. Berry, at times, you've done this, on the wing at times. Potentially, you go to Goulden and look after Goulden at times. We're not going absolutely over the top because they've got to worry about Rayner. They've got to worry about McCluggage. They've got to worry about Warner if you're Sydney. They've got to worry about Goulden or Heaney. And they've got to worry about our stars as well, 100%.
Let's move on. Because
before we do, can I just go back one question to wrap up the Brownlow? Who was the champion data Brownlow medalist again, for memory? Was Bont?
Bont. Yep. Bont was our highest rated player for the year.
By how much?
No, in terms of our overall ratings, Bont was our highest, Heaney second, and Hayden Young was third. That was your top 3.
All right, let's move on to your talking points, and you're going to wheel out your favourite phrase.
Yes, and I thought I would, given that this is our last show, and I will wheel it out, and that is I'll back history until history changes, and we can analyse the game to an nth degree, and we probably do that a little bit too much, but it's a bit of fun and what have you. But again, the starting point will be, until history changes, the turnover game. Because regardless of what happens on Saturday, the Premier will be top 3 in the turnover game, making it 17 of the last 18 Premiers to be top 3 in the turnover game. Not top 6, not top 8.
Top 3.
Top 3. And that's points differential from turnover. So you go through the whole final series so far. There's been 8 games played. Whoever's won the turnover game has won the game of footy. So if you're looking at it, let's just look at it for 2 parts at the moment. You're looking at it for this weekend, right? And we're looking at the last 6 weeks. Sydney offensively, number 3 at being able to convert a turnover into a score. Brisbane, number 2 defensively. Again, I'll tell you, they don't get enough credit for what they do, Brisbane, defensively. The interesting part here is the other way around. Brisbane are number 2 offensively in the turnover game. Sydney are number 11 at defending it. So they give you a chance, and they've given you a chance over the last 6 weeks when they've won 5 of their last 6 games or whatever it might be. So that's going to be the challenge for the Swans on Saturday is defensively, are they going to be able to shut this down? Because offensively, they both have it ticked. Defensively, Brisbane have it ticked. Swans at the moment have a question mark. Yes, they were great against Port Adelaide, but this is a 6-week period.
Isn't it, though, because, and we've highlighted, the Lizard has gone for too much on a number of occasions, which is indefensible. It's just a 30-metre pass into centre-half back, turnover goal.
Not so, and I'll get into that a little bit. Just sort of coming up very shortly. That's changed the last 6 weeks. A little bit, been a little bit more conservative, but that on Saturday is going to be a huge factor, and it is a huge factor. It's the number one indicator heading into every single season. You look at what Collingwood did last year, number 2 in it last year, dropped down to number 12 this year. Melbourne have been high up in it for a number of years, went down to number 15. The Crows last year, number 4, they dropped down to number 12 or 13. So it is the absolute number one factor. 60% of your score comes in it. If you have not got this game or aspect of the game ticked off, it's going to be a challenge for you having success moving forward.
So just to wrap that up with a neat little bow, which of these 2 teams is the best in that aspect? Brisbane. By a mile.
At the moment, yep.
And why do you think that is so? Put it into, I hear what you're saying with the numbers. Tell me what it looks like on the field. Is their midfield running back faster?
That's the challenge for the Swans on the weekend. So Brisbane defensively have this covered off. Their ability to be able to get back, support behind the footy. I'm not sure what you guys thought watching it live on Saturday. They look solid behind the footy for basically the majority of the night. Just really well set up, and their midfield's been able to get back. The Swans, as I say, the Swans aren't horrendous, but it's a little bit of a red flag when you come into grand final day against the second best team in the competition.
Do you think that's the reason they changed their method with ball in hand against Port Adelaide?
Spot on.
Safer with the footy.
Spot on.
Easier to defend turnover.
Yep. And it hasn't just been against Port Adelaide, which I might as well get into that right now. So it was noticeable seeing that on Friday night, wasn't it? Just seeing them go around the boundary, close to 130, but just trim the fat in the last quarter without trying to kill time. It was still 90 to 100 marks at 3/4 time, and the game was alive. So this is always the interesting part across such a long campaign, a 30-week campaign, that you're going to have to change your method throughout the year. And we talked about the Swans halfway through the year where they were miles clear on top. And, I said that they're a sitting duck.
Yeah, going to get worked out.
You're sitting there and the whole competition's going to go to work in you. So they did. They tried to take off corridor. They tried to block up corridor. That's the Swans method. Short 45s, back in the corridor, walk your way through there. The opposition starters know that off the back of what Fremantle did against them in round 16 at Sydney. Then you see the Port Adelaide example, the Brisbane example. And the Swans still thought, no, we're going to go for it. We're going to keep going for it, keep going for it, keep going for it. And it killed him. And it killed him on the scoreboard, which is what you were alluding to before. And full credit to the Swans for adjusting it and adapting a more long down the line approach, less corridor approach, and a significant increase in going around the boundary. So now, if you're coming up against the Swans, which is what Brisbane would be thinking about this week, well, they're not that easy to plan for now. Like, okay, we've got to try and take corridor off them. But they're also now adapting this. Okay, well, if you're going to do that, well, we've got this mindset. We'll just take whatever you're going to give us, as opposed to that. That Port Adelaide game around 21. It was like, well, they're just still just going to keep going for this, Well, no, we're not doing that now. So full credit to what they've been able to do with the change in ball movement method. And I just want to put this one player on the agenda for Saturday. Justin McInerney is so important to what this Swans ball movement game looks like. He was out injured for, 6, 7 weeks, whatever it was. To me, he looked really underdone first final against GWS. That he needed the run. His ball use this year is the 5th best kick in the competition, and it's what he does around the ground. He's the 2nd best field kick in the competition. So his ability to be able to pick angles and pick your way through. You saw what he did against Port Adelaide on the weekend. A grand final Saturday, 23, 24 degrees, whatever it's going to be. You think it's going to be a ball movement game. Someone like him is going to be really important to what Sydney could do outside the absolute superstars.
He's a smoky at about 50 to 1 for the Norm Smith.
I don't think he's a smoke. I wouldn't be going Norm Smith, but I'd be going a little bit the level of importance for what he can do is going to be there.
What about the Lions?
Yeah, so full credit to the Lions. If you think back to West Coast in 2018, right, and the whole industry and ourselves are looking at going, geez, their contested footy work and the ground ball stuff was, pretty poor. Can that actually get you through a final series? And then they go whack, 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 3 finals in a row, win it when they, had struggled at times to be able to win, contested footy and ground ball significantly, and then win the flag. Then you're looking at Brisbane heading into this final series, and pressure is increased come finals. Where everyone knows that the eye doesn't lie in that aspect. And you're looking at what Brisbane are doing pressure wise, and it's bottom 3, bottom 4 in the competition. And for the previous 5 weeks heading in, it was far worse than that. Like, okay, is this going to stack up or not? Like, you haven't been a pressure team throughout the whole season. Is it actually going to stack up? First 50 minutes against Carlton, off the charts sort of stuff that we haven't really seen Brisbane do for a long time. Then you get to the final against GWS, the control v chaos game. And the control game gets taken away from them. They get brought into a chaos game where it is high pressure and the ball lives in that sort of situation. They adapt to it. They bring their own high pressure to a game where, again, we haven't seen for a while. And then you go to Saturday and, one of the great prelims that you'll see. And their pressure on Geelong for that second half was incredible with what they were able to do. Something that, again, we hadn't seen throughout the home and away season. So they've now changed to be able to bring this pressure game that you've seen in grand finals. So the last 11 grand finals since we've done pressure, only once has a premier applied a pressure rating under 180, which is AFL average, and won. So over the last 11. You're looking at that with Brisbane at the start, again, at the start of the final series game. Is this their question mark? Not from what we've seen over the last 3 weeks. And then the other element that I just want to just give a little bit of recognition to and put something on the agenda for Saturday is this forward handball game that they're now
got that going, didn't they?
Absolutely. So what they did on the weekend to gain over 500 metres through handball, to put that into context, no team has done that in a final since Richmond in 2017. Where I think we can all think back to Richmond going, well, they were the architects of that forward handball game. What they did against Geelong was superb. So they've now got a couple of different modes in which they can get you. So we just talked about the Swans. Do they want to go corridor? Do they want to be risky and whatnot? They can now go boundary, go long down the line. Brisbane, we always associate Brisbane with being a kick mark team. They have been under that, with Fags for a number of years. Yes, they were able to do that on the weekend against Geelong, but like we saw against GWS, if that gets taken away from them, which there is a chance in grand final day that it can, they've now got another mode with this forward handball game to be able to challenge you, which just creates an extra threat if you're Sydney this week.
Can I ask you about the pressure? Because the Giants, their pressure numbers were the best of anybody's, I think, right throughout the season, but in the last quarter and a half, it dropped away. Has Chris Fagan just realised that you can't have the tap turned on for the entirety of the season for pressure? You just wear out. But he's turned it on at the appropriate time.
Very good question. I think it's something that you can absolutely address pretty quickly.
Yep.
With a sort of a slight sort of change in defensive intent by your individuals, and a slight sort of shift in terms of how you structurally want to actually defend the opposition and be a little bit more aggressive at charging up and actually shutting down the opposition, as opposed to sitting back and waiting for them to actually come at you. You're right. It's a very hard way to play a game that relies on pressure being at the 190 to 195 mark for a 30-week campaign. I mean, that's extremely unrealistic. So it's it's a fair call.
You'd be feeling flat, wouldn't they, the Giants?
What was it? 265 minutes over in front for. So 265 minutes a game.
Night, he walked past us, and I'm not surprised.
He head down.
He didn't want to talk.
Straight past us.
Don't blame him.
He did 5AA in Adelaide. Didn't do us. I'm not surprised why, but to have the lead that they had against both of these two teams that are playing today is heartbreak. Jason's got a question for you, Hoyne. Please ask about the ruck advantage for Grundy with the big O out now.
I think it's more what McInerney did against Grundy for me that absolutely stood out, as opposed to what Grundy can actually do now. Because from what we've seen, and we've spoken about Grundy on this show, when he was potentially raised as an All-Australian, which sort of, raised our eyebrows, he's not the same player, Grundy, that he was 5 years ago. So it's going to take something different on Saturday from the performances that he's put in place. And even against Jordan Sweet on the weekend, like he didn't really have the influence there. So I'm not looking at Grundy going, okay, Grundy could potentially rip this game apart off what we've seen him produce this year.
Yeah.
I'm more looking at it from a Brisbane point of view going, geez, McInerney's influence on Grundy in round 19 was enormous. The fact that he had the most contested possessions on the ground, the most clearances on the ground, and some of his ruck work, which you called with Brownie that day, was
the left-handed hit to Neil won them the game.
And he was smashing Stanley before he got injured.
Absolutely
smashing him.
So Fort's not going to do that. So you're going to lose that from a Brisbane perspective, where I think it's should be more of a break-even sort of situation where I would back Darcy Fort just, to compete and get it to ground.
Tell us what sort of player Grundy actually is right now. You've told us what he isn't. Tell us what he is.
He's a bit of a average ruckman right across all aspects that you value from a ruck. Whereas, peak Grundy performance, 17 to 20, it was more what he did around the ground, his follow-up. His ruck work was okay, but it was never at the Max Gawn, Nick Naitanui point of view. But you're looking at it where opposition coaches, and we were sort of talking as industry going, okay, how do you nullify Brodie Grundy's influence around the ground?
Yeah.
You're not really seeing that at the moment. And as I said, it'll have to take something pretty significant to change what he's done so far this year.
Having watched him a lot, I reckon they need to get him off the ground more.
Yeah, he looks tired.
Always looks tired.
He does look tired.
He labours.
Out in his feet.
And I think more McLean and just freshen him up. Yeah. Whatever rest he's getting, I'd double it.
I think that's a good observation.
You're playing Darcy Fort, though, aren't you?
Yeah, you have to. And even I was even thinking that today, just prepare him to play 3 quarters and put as much miles into Grundy as you possibly can, with the thought that if we're in full health for 3 quarters, get him off, Joe can ruck, bring on a fresh runner like we saw, which was really important for them, but just smash into Grundy, elbows, any midfielder that he runs past, bump into him, like teams have done with Max Gawn before that. That's what I'd be saying. So you have got 3 hard quarters in you. That's all we need from you. Give us your best. Get into him, knees, elbows, bump him, compete. And then if it's working our way and we don't have any other concerns, get you off just before 3/4 time, inject the fresh legs on. And that's sort of the way I'd be setting it up.
Well, some of the conversation I heard over the last 24 hours around, you should just play Joe Danaher off the back of what he did on Saturday.
What happens if Joe Danaher gets injured?
But not even that. I'm more just looking at going, okay, if I'm John Longmire, what do I want? I want Joe on the ruck.
Yeah.
Because we're seeing what Joe has done in a final series. We saw what he did against Sam Taylor. That's going to cause you far more of a challenge, and it's going to cause Tom McCartan far more of a challenge than looking at what he does in the ruck. I mean, I think we can get a little bit carried away about the story sometimes. He was okay on Saturday, and he did enough to, just compete. Yeah. But I didn't look at him and go, he won them the game. He was absolutely influential in the ruck. All
right, Guess Who is back, the grand final edition of Guess Who. What's the clue?
So these are our highest rated grand finalists. This is since 2010. So Luke Shuey had the highest rated grand final in 2018. His performance against West Coast was unbelievable. Dusty's 2017 was the second highest rated grand final we've got on record since 2010. Who has the third highest rated grand
since
final
2010?
Since 2010.
Adam White coming in to take over from Kane Cornes as we look forward to the grand final. Champion data Daniel Hoyne is also in the studio, and you asked a question before the break, Hoyne.
Whitey, great to have you here. Yeah, so our third highest rated grand final that we have on record since ratings were introduced in 2010. Luke Shuey, number 1 in 2018. Dusty, number 2 in 2017. Who is number 3? There's a fair hint that he's a player that is playing this weekend.
Well, that counts me out, 'cause I was going to say Dusty, but you gave us the clue, and I'm just going to jump on the back of the million texts that have come through on the most one of the most exciting units out there at the present time, the Chad.
Yes, and I'm very happy with our audience tonight, because I wasn't too sure whether or not Chad's 2022 grand final was going to get recognised, given that they lost by, 80, 90 points, whatever it was. So
it is the Chad.
Yeah, it is the Chad. So that's the third
got
best.
That right.
It's the third best grand final that we have.
Educated audience.
I was just about to say you've educated your audience very well, Gerard.
Well, haven't we, G? It's taken a couple of years.
It's a real proud dad moment for Gerard.
Yes, it is. Yeah, very, very good. What was his rating, by the way?
So his rating was just under 30. So for those, sort of playing along, a 15 rating game is an All-Australian type performance. 20 is wow. Anything close to 30 is just ridiculous. So he did all these, and to be fair to people that might criticise, they lost by 80-odd points. He did a lot of his damage in the second half. So his second half is the highest rated half we've recorded in a grand final. And even further to that, his last quarter is the highest rated quarter that we've ever recorded in a grand final.
Hoyne, you've revolutionised the sport. I've said that before. Champion data.
Champion data. Ted Hopkins.
Yeah. You went through a few phases, and one of the phases was rankings, which a lot of people understand, and Fox Footy put up and have done for a long time. We're working over there at Fox Footy of having live ratings. Can you, which are the only thing to really gravitate to, in a nutshell, can you tell me why ratings are better than rankings? And I'll give you a hint because you told me this. It's because you get penalised for stuffing it up.
Yeah. So the rankings is taking into account the volume of disposals that you have as well, whereas the ratings are purely looking at impact. So 3 things that the ratings measures in real simple terms for people out there: how you win it, where on the ground you win it, and then what you do with it. So if you win it in a contest and then use it well in dangerous areas, you're going to get recognised. If you win it on the outside and just chip it around sideways to an uncontested teammate that doesn't really put yourself in a better chance to score next, you're not going to get recognised. So if you're winning it on the outside and you're an outside ball user, you want to be having some significant impact with what you're doing ball in hand. None of this sort of chipping around sideways sort of lateral sort of thing.
So if you take a mark 15 metres out and you miss the goal,
you get penalised significantly.
You get significantly penalised.
Yep. We talk about accuracy. Accuracy determines a lot of games, and then people look at the ratings. Yeah, geez, how did that player have that? Well, he missed 3 shots at goal, which kills you. So, yeah, it takes into account the impact on the matches as opposed to the absolute volume of pure disposals that you might win.
Before you push on, there's a lot of texts that have come in saying Christian Petrarca. How high was he in that?
Yeah, he's
that 2021 grand final.
I had it actually right in front of me before. His 2021 grand final is top 10 that we've seen. Dusty's 2020 grand final, if you extrapolated that out to a full-time length game, that actually would have been the second best performance that we've seen. But, just given the shortened game time, the ratings sort of don't take that into account. But the reason why I just wanted to throw up the Warner, there's always a reason as to why we do our Guess Who. We just
take
don't
us
throw
to where you want to
random
go
things
to.
up. Is that we talked about at the start of the show. The Stars are there to win your prelim, and they're going to determine the result on Saturday. Clearly, Warner's one of them. And then you look at Heaney and you look at Goulden. If we just start with the Swans, right? So the Heaney situation at the moment, I mean, his final series so far has been ridiculous. But then you look at what Port Adelaide tried to do to him, and you can't deny Ken Hinkley and the coaches for not having a crack at trying to limit him. Willem Drew went straight to him, and he still has the impact, on the match, that he did. And you just dip your lid and just, mate, this guy is absolutely flying. So you look at it and you go, the Errol Goulden situation is the interesting one, I think, for the Swans this weekend, because the big 3, which one do you actually pay attention to? The performances that sort of he's been delivering over the last couple of weeks has been a little bit inconsistent at times. So potentially he could be more gettable than he. You clearly have to do something about Heaney this week as opposed to just letting him go. But I'll be having a bit of a look at what Goulden has done over the last couple of weeks, and then the James Jordan matchup. And I put my hand up straight away Sunday before I started doing a deep dive into the preview. And I thought, okay, Jordan to me would go straight to Zorko. And then the more that you do this deep dive and the more you have a look at, okay, is it Neil or is it Zorko? To me, it's putting it straight to Lachie Neale. So the clearance game on the weekend, whilst Neil didn't have the absolute damage in his game with how he actually used the footy, the fact that he's able to win 12 clearances and get the footy going forward in a territory sense and take Geelong's damage away from clearance was significant.
Why wouldn't the row bottomiser do that?
I think row bottom. I look at what Jordan has done against Dacos and what he's done against Merritt, and then what he did against Butters on the weekend, coming in off the half forward flank and going straight to a centre bounce midfielder has got them going again, and has been significant. So I would just let row bottom play and play as that, defensive midfielder who's just there just to control things.
Why wouldn't you put him on the kid who's energised them? Yeah.
Let him, I agree with what Kane said. You can't. If I'm Brisbane and Sydney, you've got elite talent everywhere, right? So you've got to back yourself in too, as opposed to just being absolute pure negative. I'll be looking at Jordan going to Neil, and I'll be looking at Brisbane just doing a little bit with Dunkley and potentially having a look at what they do with either Warner or Goulden.
Yeah, Gerard, how much is it when you're determining who to tag? Is it the best player, but also sometimes it's the easiest one to tag? Because that might not make sense.
No, I understand what you're saying.
Is it easier to take Goulden out of the game as opposed to potentially minimising the effectiveness or the damage of Heaney? If you take Goulden straight out of it, all of a sudden there's only 2 there.
Yeah, I accept what you're saying. I mean, it's much harder to tag Heaney than it is to tag Goulden on what we've seen.
See, I thought Drew would have gone to Goulden last week. Because he did a really good job on D'Ambrosio the week before.
Yeah. And they went.
And we put that on the agenda last week. Yeah. I thought Drew could have been perfect for Goulden.
You did. And they ended up going, my bloke will do as much damage as your bloke.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is fair.
They got it wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think it's an interesting conversation around when you're making that decision.
We're going to move on, Hoyne. Where are we going next?
Okay, so we had this conversation at the start of the final series. Why not Sydney? Why not Brisbane? Why not Geelong? So let's just finish that off for this weekend. So why not Sydney? Why can't they win it? And why can't they be premier this week? So full credit to what their forward 50 is doing over the last 5 weeks. So since that drop in form, 1 in 2 of their entries are actually getting on the scoreboard, which is a significant return. We talk about that counter punch game across that halfback area. They've got that absolutely ticked off offensively and defensively. So their ability to be able to explode off there through what Nick Blake is doing and through what Matty Roberts is doing as well has been significant. But then their ability to be able to shut down the opposition has been huge. And our great friend accuracy. Don't underplay accuracy. Almost, 2 finals a year are determined by accuracy. Only one's been determined by accuracy this year, so potentially one this weekend. The Swans' accuracy over the last 5 weeks, absolutely through the roof, and we've seen at times what the accuracy component can do to Brisbane across their 2024 season. So a couple of things there.
Joel Amati, it was the best game I've seen him play, including his 9 goals.
Including his 9 goals.
Yeah, I know his 9 goals.
It's hard to...
I know the 9 goals would have rated higher, but he just looked so much more mature and he looked in control of his game, whereas I think the 9 goals sort of was one of those games where it just happened.
Yeah, that actually makes sense, and I would never I would never judge you on that.
Well, he looked to have great growth on the weekend. He was solid. He read the play better. He marked the ball out in front. I think it was his most impressive performance.
One thing to that, he was allowed to play that way with how easily the Swans move the footy. So, their ability to be able to take 120, 130 marks and work their way in and chip their way in, he was able to play the way that he needs to be able to play. That's Brisbane's challenge this weekend. And then why not Brisbane? So we've spoken about how important the ground ball game is in finals. 80% of finals are played on the deck in a final series compared to a 50% sort of ratio in the home and away season. You purely look at the last 6 weeks. This is Brisbane's huge opportunity. At ground level, they're on average, they're plus 13 ground balls on their opposition in the last 6 weeks. The Swans break even, so not horrendous, but they're not in that elite level where Brisbane are. Then the most important aspect, once the ball leaves a stoppage situation, how do you go on the deck? Brisbane plus 5 on their opposition over the last 6 weeks on average. The Swans minus 5 on average over the last 6 weeks. That is a huge challenge. And then the clearance situation, we saw what Brisbane were able to do in the clearance situation for the majority of the game outside of that second quarter against Geelong last week. Last 6 weeks, Brisbane are plus 6 in clearances. Swans are in the negative. So Brisbane have only lost 2 games this year, and ironically against the same opposition in Collingwood, when they've won the clearance game, the raw clearance game.
Yep.
So that's where I keep coming back to the Jordan to Neil situation.
Yes.
Can't let Lockie do what he did against Geelong on the weekend and have 12 clearances. That's where I look at it and keep coming back. So important in determining this game on the weekend. So that in the trenches, that is in significantly in Brisbane's favour at the moment.
And if we just run an average through it, which probably shocks people, but your hit out to advantage runs at about 12 to 13%.
Yeah, don't worry about the hit out to advantage.
So what I'm saying is, unless the ruckman is getting his own clearances, they're really a non-event at the clearance.
Yep, spot on. I wouldn't be worried about that for this weekend.
Are you prepared to give a tip, or are you just going to?
Yeah, I'll go a tip. I'm going to go. And I said this to a lot of people over the week. The 3 weeks of travel in a row concerns me. I don't know if that's going to be a factor, so I have to park that to the side at the moment. Purely looking off our stuff, I'm going to go Brisbane by 8 points this weekend.
Okay. Now you want to talk about Geelong and Port Adelaide.
Yeah, let's just quickly wrap up like we've done for the last couple of teams. So we talked about last week. You are who you are. Geelong, the prelim against Brisbane, one of the great prelim finals that you will see. Sometimes you just got to cop it. And they stay true to who they are. They embrace and play the chaos game more than anyone else in the competition. And that was what they did on the weekend against Brisbane. They just get pipped 2 minutes in front. Calamachi dobs one from 45. Rayner dobs one from 55. You fall just short of a grand final bet. So in that you want to see how Geelong play and embrace how they play. That second quarter, they kick 7 goals. They take 6 marks for the quarter. Not 1 mark inside 50, and they've kicked 7 goals.
Yep,
that's just them. They embraced the chaos game, got their small forwards up. There was one concern heading in, and we put that on the radar last week. At times, their inability to defend ball movement was a little bit of a concern, and unfortunately for that, that's where the game swung in that third quarter. Their inability to be able to stop Brisbane moving from one end of the ground to the other. Overall, I think that their list is in as good a shape moving forward as it has been for a long time, given the age demographic of the whole list. So, hats off to what they were able to do so far. Also, what they were able to do in 2024, and then Port again getting back to you are who you are. We put it on the radar. Number 16 post clearance work. For Port Adelaide across the season. The Swans number 15 in post clearance contest. That was probably going to determine the game.
Yep,
it did determine the game. The Swans belted the Swans belted Port outside of that. So Port's investment in at raw clearance was obvious. Plus 15 clearances at halftime. Everyone can see that, but they didn't have the talent outside of that group to be able to capitalise on that. The Swans knew that. Their ability to be able to win that ball and then go and then be able to punish Port Adelaide was significant. How do they... and I think that is a talent issue. So I'm looking, and I know I've spoken about this guy a lot throughout the year. I'm looking at Rosie, and I thought his season, to be, rated 181 in the comp this year was a really, disappointing season.
So how does he get better, Hoyne?
Well, I just look at him and go, I'm not too sure whether or not he needs to be this permanent midfielder. And I look at what he did in his first 2 years, 3 years in the system, where he was having such significant impact playing as a flanker.
Yep.
That's the role that I'd be going into, looking at this post-clearance work and getting him involved in that aspect of the game.
Replaces Houston in many ways.
As opposed to getting him involved in the pure stop. I think you've got enough pure stoppage players with Wines, Butters, Horne-Francis. I think Horne-Francis is a better clearance product than what Rosie is. So just putting that there, just how do they address that, over the off season? But